You know what's gangster? I own Sony's publishing. Every time Beyonce and Jay-Z make a song, Michael was getting a check. I bought the Beatles.
Yeah.
While I'm doing the video with the Beatles. That's gangster.
Michael Jackson and Tupac start rumbling. Michael Jackson beat his. They said Tupac loved to fight, but he can't fight.
Look at Michael Jackson. He got all these gangbangers behind him and they don't with him. Right?
Yeah.
Michael Jackson was known for his innocent appearance and soft-spoken nature, but it turns out he might have been far from that image, and Tupac apparently learned that the hard way. To the surprise of many fans, it seems Michael may have taught Tupac a tough lesson about not judging a book by its cover. Let's dive in.
So Michael Jackson whooped Tupac's.
Yeah.
Oh man, listen, you know what the people gonna say? They're gonna say, "What in the world?"
So he ain't no way Michael Jackson could have been soft at all. Just going by his household. Joe beat their ass. So he wasn't scared to take a punch.
Michael Jackson versus Tupac. So for years now, there's been this wild rumor floating around about a supposed feud between Michael Jackson and Tupac, and how it allegedly ended with Michael Jackson beating up Tupac. Now, according to the story, it all supposedly went down one night after an industry event. Tupac was walking out of the venue with his then-girlfriend, Kidada Jones. Now, if you don't know, Kidada is the daughter of legendary music producer Quincy Jones, who just so happens to be super tight with Michael Jackson. So in a way, Kidada was like family to Michael, basically like a niece to him. As the story goes, Tupac was allegedly cussing Kidada out as they were leaving the tent. And everybody knows Pac had a fiery temper and didn't always hold back his words, especially when emotions were running high. Now, Michael supposedly witnessed this little outburst and felt a type of way about it, so he steps in, telling Tupac not to talk to Kidada like that. But of course, Pac being Pac, he wasn't the type of guy to back down or take orders from anyone, not even Michael Jackson.
Tupac comes out the party, disrespecting Khadijah like, shut up, come on, shut the up and get in the car. Mike stepped to him, yo, you can't talk to her like that. Mike, mind your business. Mike was like, no, that's like my niece. You ain't gonna just talk to her like that.
Allegedly, things got heated, words were exchanged, and a scuffle broke out. And according to the rumor, Michael came out on top. Some say Michael Jackson actually put hands on Tupac and won the fight.
Michael Jackson beat his. They said Tupac loved to fight, but he can't fight.
Now that's the part of the story that makes people pause and go, wait, what? I mean, Michael Jackson, the king of pop, moonwalking into a fistfight and beating up one of hip-hop's most feared icons? It sounds crazy, almost too wild to believe, but to some folks, the story kind of makes sense when you dig deeper. See, Michael didn't grow up soft. He was raised in a rough household with a bunch of brothers and a strict, no-nonsense father, Joe Jackson, who, by many accounts, was abusive and even had a background in boxing. There are stories that Michael was the only one who dared to stand up to their dad, so while his public image was all soft-spoken and gentle, there might have been a tougher side to him that the world never really saw. On the flip side, while Pac had that thug persona and loved to throw hands, there's been talk from people who knew him that he actually wasn't that great at fighting. He had the heart, but maybe not the hands. Still, there are industry insiders who flat out deny this entire incident ever happened. They say there's no way Michael and Pac ever physically fought.
Some guy is telling the story, some guy I've never heard of, was that Michael Jackson beat up Tupac.
That's what I'm saying. That's a lie.
Right. And I'm like, and they're like, it could have happened, it could have happened.
For one, Michael was insanely famous at that point, and he didn't move around alone. He rolled deep with security that treated him like he was the president of the United States. Nobody was getting close enough to throw a punch, and Tupac was also at the height of his fame, constantly surrounded by his own crew. So even if there was tension, an actual one-on-one fight breaking out between the two just doesn't add up for some people.
First of all, how big Pac was and how big Michael Jackson was. Michael Jackson had security. He used to run around with security like the president. So you really think that the security gonna let him and Pac have a fair fight? Like, it doesn't even make sense.
But here's where things get interesting, because even if the fight rumor is bogus, there was some real tension between Michael and Tupac, and it had to do with music. According to Napoleon from the Outlaws, Tupac was actually really hyped about the idea of working with Michael Jackson. He got the call and was ready to jump on a track, but when Pac showed up at the studio, Michael wasn't there. Instead, Tupac was told to just lay down his verse solo, and that right there didn't sit right with him. Pac took it as a sign of disrespect and immediately walked out. He felt like if Michael really wanted to work with him, he should have shown up in person.
Michael Jackson wanted to do a song with Pac, and this is what Pac said. And he went to the studio, he was excited because he wanted to do that song and meet Michael Jackson. When he got to the studio, Michael Jackson wasn't there. Pac said, I walked out. Pac wanted to be more personal. Before I do a song with you, let's meet. Tell me what type of maybe lyrics you want me to say, but so I guess he was like, man, he wasn't feeling it.
After that, things supposedly turned sour. The story goes that Michael was upset Pac walked out and, in response, chose to work with Biggie instead, who, at the time, was Pac's biggest rival. Quincy Jones' son, QD3, would later back that up by saying Tupac's team tried to get Michael on the song Thug Nature, but Jackson declined out of loyalty to Biggie. However, that version of events got challenged too. Danny Boy, a former Death Row artist, claimed the story was false. He said he was actually there when Michael listened to Tupac's All Eyes on Me album and that Michael liked it. He also pointed out that Suge Knight was close to the Jacksons at the time, which makes it hard to believe there was serious bad blood.
Being in a meeting with Michael Jackson and the All Eyes on Me album being played for him. And Michael went crazy. I don't see him saying that he messed with Biggie and not with Tupac. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like, Suge and the Jacksons are very close. They were at that time. So, like, that just don't sound right to me. But that Machiavelli album wasn't a Play With Me album neither. It was pretty rough content, lyrics.
So when it's all said and done, what's the truth? Did Michael and Tupac really throw hands? Did Michael pick Biggie over Pac out of loyalty? Or is all of this just industry myth that got twisted over time? Honestly, we may never know the full story. Michael in the streets. But despite all the rumors and supposed drama between Michael Jackson and Tupac, there's another side to Michael's life that most fans have never cared about. This side of Michael involves alleged ties to gang culture. Now, it might sound completely out of left field to even mention Michael's name in the same sentence as gangs, but over the years, there have been a few interesting moments in his career that suggest he may have had some real interactions and even connections with street gangs. In particular, there's been a lot of talk about Michael's link to the Crips, one of the most notorious gangs in America, and it all seems to go back to a very specific moment in his early solo career. Let's rewind to the early 80s during the making of the music video for Beat It. By this point, Michael had already proven he was a superstar, and he wanted the video to send a strong message, especially about ending violence. But he didn't want it to come off as fake or corny, so instead of hiring a bunch of actors to play gang members, Michael had a bold idea. He decided to bring in the real deal. He reached out and cast actual gang members from the streets of LA, specifically real-life Crips and Bloods, along with 80 more street-affiliated individuals, including members from the Barrio Nuevo Estrada gang. He wanted the video to be raw, real, and impactful. To make this happen, Michael connected with the LAPD's gang task force, who helped him get in touch with the East Coast Crips. That moment right there was the first real connection between Michael and the 716 East Coast Crips, who were the only Crip set involved in the Beat It shoot. Michael had a bus sent to Florence and Hooper, deep in the heart of South Central LA, just to bring them downtown to the video shoot in Skid Row. Now you can probably imagine the tension. You've got Crips and Bloods on the same set. At first, there were a few scuffles and confrontations, it's almost expected, but Michael being Michael with that calm, almost otherworldly energy, managed to bring peace to the set. By the time the shoot wrapped up, these rival gang members were coexisting and even vibing together. And it wasn't just business. Michael made sure they were treated well. Everyone was paid, fed, and in between takes, they hung out near his trailer. Michael even gave them autographed pictures and Victory Tour tickets as gifts. Fast forward a few years to 1987 and Michael was bigger than ever. He dropped his iconic Bad album, and with it came another massive hit, The Way You Make Me Feel, and the video was also shot in Skid Row. But this time, Michael tapped into another Crip set, the 890 East Coast Crips. There's even this iconic behind-the-scenes photo from that shoot. In it, you can see a gang member named Boxer from 890 ECC standing right beside Michael, both of them throwing up the East Coast Crip hand sign.
And we actually used real gang members in the video. We had the V13s down here on this corner, and the Crips on this corner, and some of the guys were smoking. And Michael came to me and says, Joe,
But Michael didn't stop there. He kept the authenticity going by involving other local gangs for the shoot's background and set decoration. He let them paint graffiti art on the set, repping their hoods. Among the crews involved were Fides Broadway Gangster Crips, 107 Hoovers, Zenith 13, 18th Street, and of course, the East Coast Crips. It turned the video into a colorful mix of real street culture, and Michael looked completely at home in the middle of it all. Word started getting around in the streets that Michael might actually be affiliated. Some even said the Crips had his back, and you know how word spreads in the industry. Soon, even Eazy-E from NWA was talking about it, adding to whispers that Michael Jackson, the king of pop, might have had some gang ties.
Look at Michael Jackson. He got all these gangbangers behind him, and they don't with him. Right?
Yeah.
And then there's the music. Around this time, Michael recorded the now rare track, I'm So Blue, and followed it up with a song called Blue Gangsta. Whether or not that title had anything to do with his street affiliations is up for debate, but fans couldn't help but draw connections. Then in 2003, Michael made a dramatic return to his hometown of Gary, Indiana, the first time he had been back in over 20 years. The whole city lit up. It was a huge event. In classic MJ style, he bought out an entire KFC and started handing out pieces of chicken to the fans who had packed the parking lot waiting to see him. People were crying, screaming, even fainting, and allegedly members of the Vice Lords and Gangster disciples were in the crowd that day. Now, despite his well-known affiliation with the Crips, Michael also had connections with other influential figures, including drug lords. One of the wildest examples of this happened when Michael went to Brazil to shoot the music video for his politically charged track, They Don't Care About Us. The video, known for its raw energy and powerful message, was shot in one of Rio de Janeiro's most notorious favelas, Santa Marta. At the time, Santa Marta wasn't just any slum, it was under the tight grip of Marcio Amaro de Oliveira, better known on the streets as Mercinho VP, a legendary Brazilian drug lord who practically ran the area. Now here's where it gets crazy. The Brazilian police wouldn't even enter Santa Marta because of how dangerous it was, but Michael wanted to shoot his video right in the heart of that favela. So what did his team do? They had to go straight to the source, the man who controlled the territory. Katia Lund, a Brazilian filmmaker working with Spike Lee at the time, was tasked with negotiating with Mercinho VP for Michael's safety. Despite being a feared drug boss, Mercinho VP turned out to be a huge Michael Jackson fan. He basically sent a message back saying, if you come shoot in Santa Marta, you could lay $1 million on the ground with all your camera gear and nobody will touch a thing.
Now there is another controversy for Michael. Newspapers in Rio say Jackson paid protection money to the kingpin who runs that poor neighborhood for permission to shoot the video. Spike Lee says someone was paid, he doesn't know who, and Michael Jackson, as usual, isn't saying anything.
As long as Michael Jackson is in town, this place will be the safest spot on earth. That's the kind of global power and street respect Michael carried. He didn't need an army, just his name was enough to keep a dangerous favela locked down and peaceful. Michael's gangster side. But Michael didn't just stop there. He brought that gangster-like control right into the music industry too. While he didn't walk around waving guns or throwing up sets, he played the music business game with a kind of dominance that some would argue was even more intimidating. Michael was getting money from everywhere, from Jay-Z to Beyonce, from Eminem to the Beatles. Why? Because Michael Jackson owned Sony's music publishing catalog, and that included the rights to millions of songs. So every time an artist under Sony released music, Michael got a cut. King of Pop was also the king of residuals. He owned the publishing rights to the Beatles catalog, something that even Paul McCartney wasn't too thrilled about, and that control over the industry made Michael a low-key boss in his own right. Nobody moved without Michael getting a slice.
You know what's gangster? I own Sony's publishing. Every time Beyonce and Jay-Z make a song, Michael was getting a check. I bought the Beatles.
Yeah.
While I'm doing the video with the Beatles. That's gangster.
And if you ever doubted his power, just look at the situation with Eminem. Things started bubbling around November 2002 when Michael had that infamous moment where he dangled his baby, Prince, over a hotel balcony. The media went crazy and Michael caught a lot of heat. He later said he held his son tightly and didn't mean any harm, he was just trying to let fans see his baby. Fast forward to June 2003, Eminem was touring in the UK on his anger management tour. While staying at a hotel in Glasgow, Eminem decided to mock Michael by doing a parody. He walked to his hotel balcony, wearing a mask like Michael had, and held up a fake baby, pretending to toss it around. Michael didn't respond, and Eminem took that silence as a green light to go even harder. On November 19, 2003, while Michael was dealing with a massive scandal, he had just been issued an arrest warrant over extremely serious allegations, Eminem kept pushing. Michael was at one of the lowest points of his career, fighting for his freedom and reputation. But that didn't stop Eminem. Just a few months later, in September 2004, Eminem dropped Just Lose It, the lead single for his fifth album, Encore. Then in October, he released the music video, and that's when it got disrespectful. In the video, Eminem plays parodies of various celebrities, Madonna, MC Hammer, Pee Wee Herman, but when it came to Michael, he went all in. He mocked Michael's plastic surgeries, with scenes of his nose falling off, and reenacted the 1984 Pepsi commercial incident where Michael's hair caught fire. He even dressed up like Michael and danced in pajamas while mocking the allegations Michael was battling in real life. The worst part was the lyrics matched the disrespect. About a week after Eminem dropped the Just Lose It video, things finally reached a boiling point. On October 12, 2004, Michael Jackson decided to speak out. He called in live to Steve Harvey's morning show in Los Angeles, and for one of the few times in his career, Michael publicly expressed how deeply hurt and furious he was. During the interview, Michael said, "I am very angry at Eminem's depiction of me in his video. I feel that it is outrageous and disrespectful. It's one thing to spoof, but it's another to be demeaning and insensitive. I've admired Eminem as an artist, and I was shocked by this. The video was inappropriate and disrespectful to me, my children, my family, and the community at large." Steve Harvey also chimed in, saying Eminem had basically lost his hip-hop pass for that disrespect. Michael didn't stop there. He publicly called on major video platforms like BET, MTV, and VH1 to take down the Just Lose It video. Out of all of them, only BET agreed to remove it. Then, a day after the interview, Michael revealed he was considering suing Eminem over the video. But ultimately, that lawsuit never materialized. Instead, his fans stepped up, and they were relentless. Jackson supporters around the world started protesting the Just Lose It video, demanding it to be removed from rotation on every major platform: MTV, VH1, Music Choice, and more. On November 11, 2004, a large group of Michael's fans gathered right outside Times Square, protesting in front of MTV's iconic show TRL, or Total Request Live. Their signs and energy was all aimed at getting Eminem's video pulled from air, but despite the loud message, nothing happened. But Michael played the long game, and that moment came on May 31, 2007. That's when Michael, through his company Sony ATV, made a power move. He purchased Famous Music, a major music publishing company, for $370 million. Famous Music owned part of Eminem's back catalog, which included some of his biggest hits. That meant that every time Eminem's music played, Michael Jackson got paid. So while people often saw him as soft-spoken, gentle, or even passive, the truth was, Michael Jackson was no pushover.